First story. I beat the SHT out of my father after catching him and my fiancé cheating on my bed and went to console my mom, who lashed out at me and said some nasty things, believing my father's false claims and lies. So I went and see with her. Now, my mom is reaching out, having a breakdown, realizing her husband really cheated after my fiancé got pregnant. Me 27M, my fiancé 26F, call her L. My father 52M, call him B. And my mother 50F, call her R. Like many who've had something like this happen, I never thought something like this would happen to me. But here we are. I've never used Reddit, but I've seen stories from here on TikTok. So I thought I'd give this a shot for any advice you all could give me. From listening to some other stories, you all like backstories. I'll try to be as clear and precise as I can. But it's only been a week, so if I start to lose it during the telling of this, I'm sorry. Elle and I met in her freshman year of college. We were both dorming in the same building, where we eventually met. We later found out we lived 2 towns away from each other, so whenever we went home, I let her drive with me. It was only added for like 20 minutes, so it was no big deal. After multiple trips and hanging out at school, we started to date. I have a close-knit family, as did she, so we told our families right away that I had met hers plenty of times when dropping her off. But it was nothing more than an introduction and exchanging pleasantries. Both of our families accepted each other with open arms, and our relationship grew. I was a year ahead of her, so when I graduated, I went home, where I was offered a good job with great pay. I visited her at school whenever I got the chance, and whenever she came home, we would make time for each other. After she graduated, she moved in with me, as both of our jobs were in the city near where we grew up. Like me, she was offered a position at the company she works at now with great pay. After living together for about 3 years, I proposed, and we have been planning our wedding since. Now onto the part you were all reading for. Looking back, there were plenty of things I overlooked that I just wrote off, thinking my father was just trying to welcome my ex into our family. Things like my father calling her all the time, and if I was around, they would just tell me they were talking about the upcoming family party or something along those lines. One time Elle was in the shower, and her phone rang. I saw it was my dad, so I answered when he realized it was me. He sounded both upset and surprised that I picked him up. I then asked what's up, and he responded that he wanted to talk to Elle about my mother's birthday, which was in a week, and after a minute, we ended the call. Even typing this out now, I feel like an idiot for not seeing it sooner. On the day I found out it was like any other day. Elle had Thursdays off, so she made breakfast for both of us. When I set out for work, she gave me a kiss and told me to have a great day. During my drive to work, I realized I had forgotten some paperwork I would need for a meeting I had at 3 p.m. I shrugged it off and told myself I would just go home at lunch to get it. Elle texted me throughout the day talking about all the casual stuff a couple talks about, like, what do you want for dinner? I did the laundry. Do you want me to hang it up for you? I didn't think it was necessary to text her. I was coming home for lunch, so when it came around, I just left work and went home. When I got home, I noticed a car that looked like my father in our parking lot. But I didn't think anything of it and just parked and went into our building. When I opened the door, I was met with a scene out of a movie where a man comes home early and catches his spouse cheating, which is such a cliché. There was a trail of clothes, both his and hers, leading to my bedroom, and the sound of faint moans echoed through my apartment. I stood at the door in utter shock. My brain was a mix of rage, sadness, and disgust. But if you were a fly on my wall, you would see what looked like a statue. I just couldn't move. When I finally snapped to, not knowing how much time had passed, I took out my phone to record. I picked up all the clothes that were on the floor and threw them into the hall of the building. After I filmed the walk to my bedroom, the door was open. I stood in the doorway filming for about a minute, then flipped on the lights. They both jumped at the sudden light and looked at me. And to my utter shock, it was my father in the bed with her. After the initial shock, my father noticed I was recording and started to panic, trying to find anything to cover himself and telling me to stop recording. He found a towel, wrapped it around himself, and started to walk toward me. I told him, if you don't want to get hurt, stop coming to me. He either didn't care or didn't hear me and reached for my phone. I hit him square on the jaw. His head bounced off the door and slumped to the ground. Elle shrieked. I aimed the camera at Elle and said, concerned about your F-buddy, but nothing to say to your fiancé. My father woke up after about a minute of nap, and I told him I just needed to come pick something up for work, so I'm heading back now. If either of you pieces of SHT are here when I get back, I'll send this video to everyone you know. I ended the video by looking at my dad, who was still coming, and he said, you're dead to me. You're no longer my father. But you might want to go home and talk to Mom, because I'll be talking to her very soon." I sat in my car for a while until one of the bosses at work called to ask where I was. I told her I was on my way back right now. When I got to her office to hand her the paperwork, I must have looked awful because she started asking what was wrong with me. I told her it was nothing and I'd be okay. I could see her scanning me up and down, and she noticed some blood on my collar and stood up, rushed to me, and said, "You were bleeding." I looked down and said it was my father. She looked confused, so I pulled out my phone and showed her the video. She watched it in its entirety. She was introduced to Elle a few times, but never to my father. She sat there silent for a moment until it finally clicked that my fiancé was cheating on me. But not only was she cheating, it was with my father. She asked if there was anything she could do, suggesting I take some time off. But I told her I couldn't go back there right now. I just need a minute, and I'd be fine for the meeting, and I have another shirt in my office. The meeting went over fine, and I put on a smile for everyone like nothing had happened. My boss came up to me after the meeting and asked how I could do that. But I just said I don't know and went to my office. I then came home, and I was alone for the first time in a very long time. Thank you for reading. I'm sorry I carried on so much, but it was therapeutic getting everything down. I just don't know what to do. I definitely need to get the hell out of this apartment. I just can't live here anymore, and there's no possible way I'm sleeping in that bed. I know not only do I have to go get checked out for STDs, but I think I broke something in my hand. Update. Wow, hello everyone. I didn't expect to come back to Reddit and have this much support. I didn't really plan to update at all. I just wanted to put what had happened out there and hopefully get some advice. After I wrote down all that happened, I closed my computer and kind of fell into a depression. After I posted, it hit me like a train. To the ones who think it's fake, I wish I was this creative. I'd write books instead of working 9-5. I'll try to reply more to this post I just logged back on. And it was honestly too much to try and reply to every comment. Just know I read through most of them. And I truly appreciate everyone's input, both negative and positive. So, the day after I posted, I tried to get in contact with my mother, but none of my calls were connecting. I wanted to see if she would get lunch with me, and I'd tell her everything. After about a dozen tries, I decided to get into my car and go to my mother's house. She needed to know what happened as soon as possible, even if talking about it was going to make it hurt all over again. During the drive, I thought about what I would say and how I would say it, which made me start to panic. I had to pull over twice to throw up. It's not every day you have to tell your mom that her husband is screwing your fiancé. I pulled into the driveway and sat in my car for a moment to calm down and gather my thoughts. I was in my car for a few minutes when my mother threw her front door open, so I stepped out of my car. She started cursing at me, saying how dare I come to her home after I hit my father for trying to break up a fight between Elle and I. She called me every name in the book and called me an abuser. She told me I needed to leave since Elle isn't ready to forgive me yet, and that if she's smart, she hopefully never will. Yes, apparently my father took Elle to my family's home and told my mom that Elle and I argued. And when my father tried to spot it, I hit him. She continued on for a while until I finally snapped and said, "Really, Mom? Because your husband is effing my fiancé. That's why I hit him. And if you can't take my word for it, I have a video, I'll send it to you. But because my own mother can talk to me like this, don't expect to see me again. I don't want to hear your apology when you finally figure out that you're just as SHT of a mom as my piece of SHT father." Her face dropped, and she looked like what I must have looked like when I first walked into my apartment and caught them. I pulled out my phone and sent her the video. My mom took hers out and turned it on. She pulled up the video and watched up until the part where I turned on the light. She then put her phone down. She looked up at me, but I turned and went into my car. I backed out of her driveway. I looked at her before I took off, and she was in tears. My heart felt for her. But too much was said during that fight for me to pull back in and forgive her. When I got home, I started clearing everything out of my apartment that had to do with Elle or my family. I boxed all of Elle's things up and put them next to the front door. Legally, this has been her place of residence, so I can't technically kick her out. Her name isn't on the lease, and she's the type of person who shies away from conflict. And if she returns other than to pick up her things, there will be plenty of conflict. Anything that had to do with my parents, I boxed up and put into storage. Like I said in my first post, we were a very close family, but I've never had a problem cutting toxic people out of my life. I texted Elle's parents and told them to call off the engagement, and I told them she'd been cheating on me. I thanked them for everything they've done for me. Our relationship was still building, But they were kind and supportive of me, so this just added more hurt to the mix. I finished by asking if they would come pick up all of her belongings. I haven't gotten a response from them yet, but I'm hoping they come grab her things, so Elle doesn't have a reason to come back here. Update. Hey everyone, I'm sorry I haven't updated in a while. I wish I could say I'm doing great, but that would be a lie. Everything hits me in waves. I go from just being numb to boiling with rage. I haven't had a happy moment since I found out. Other than a few friends, I don't really have anyone in real life, especially since my family turned out to be SHT. Quite a few things happened since I posted last. It's been about a month. So this update will tell you all that's been going on. After my last post, I decided to get the ball rolling on everything that needed to be done, like getting tested, finding a therapist, moving, and, of course, buying a new bed. I started by calling my doctor's office, telling them I needed to get tested and to refer me to a therapist. I had my first appointment with a therapist 2 weeks ago, and we decided to continue once a week. I also got tested last week, but it'll be another week or so. So until I get the results, cross your fingers for me. I got in touch with a real estate agent friend of mine, and he sent me a ton of listings, and I decided on a refurbished cabin on the outskirts of my city. I finished moving 2 days ago. When I finished moving, I called Elle's parents, and when they picked up, I told them I moved out and Elle has still yet to pick up her things, and that the landlord will start showing the apartment in a few days, so someone better pick her things up before the landlord throws them out. That must have lit a fire under them, because the next day my former landlord texted me, thanking me for getting the apartment emptied out. No one knows where I live now other than the friend who set me up with this place. So I know Elle, or my parents, won't be dropping by. The only thing that stinks about this place is that I traded a 10-minute walk to work for a 45-minute drive. My phone has been blowing up with texts and calls from both my parents and some of my friends, but I have no interest in talking to anyone other than my therapist. At work, I've been a ghost. I go in, get my work done, and leave. On the rare occasion I have to talk to someone, I put on my fake smile and pretend everything is okay. My boss from my previous post has been trying to check in on me more, but I don't really tell her anything either. I just tell her I appreciate it, but I'll be okay. The truth is, I don't know if I'll be okay. I get that time heals and all, but I feel like that's only relevant when you're dealing with one issue, not when you lose who you thought were the 3 closest people in your life all at once. A huge part of me died, and there's no chance of resuscitating it. The meetings with my therapist are going well. I suppose I've never done therapy before, so I have no reference to what good therapy is. We do get along all right, and she really seems genuine in wanting to help. The first session was us getting to know each other and delving into what brings me to her, nothing in depth, but me just telling her what happened in my own words. In the second session, we went a bit deeper. She asked me about the relationship I had with my parents. I told her that up until now, it was great. We talked often and always communicated well when something was wrong, and that I grew up in a great home, but that all means nothing now. She asked why I cut my mother out of my life. I told her she said things to me I wouldn't say to someone I despised, then told her there's no way she can come back from that. At the end of our last session, I gave her the link to my page here, so she could read more about how I feel and what's going on in my head. I feel like it's easier to type things out than it is to speak them. So, if you're reading this, hi doctor. For now, I'm still miserable. I thought I'd be okay by now, not necessarily happy, but okay. I know some of it is my own fault for not communicating with my friends, but when I think about responding to them, it just seems so exhausting. I know they'll want to get together or come to my new place, but I just don't have the energy to be around them. Until I do, I'll work, go to my appointments, sit on my back deck, sip on some bottom shelf whiskey, and try to enjoy this beautiful view. I haven't hunted since high school, so maybe I'll take that up again now that I can hunt from my back porch. Thank you all for reading this far. 8-month update. Hey everyone. Sorry, I've been Mia for a while now. I'm writing this update to let you all know I'm alive, and to give you the lowdown on what's been happening as of late. First, I want to apologize to those who've worried about me over the past few months. After my last post, I was nowhere near okay, so I pulled back from everything. I secluded myself in order to heal and cope with what is now my life. I want you to know every comment and message didn't fall on deaf ears. I took all of your positive feedback and advice and worked through my problem. So, to the people who've truly supported me through this, thank you. I can't stress it enough. When I was at the lowest I've ever been, it was internet strangers that were there for me. So again, thank you all. In my last post, I was doing things like getting tested for STDs and trying to restart my life. I'm happy to inform you all that I am clean and couldn't be more relieved. I have fully moved into my new place. When I told you all about my new place, I told you it was a refurbished cabin. Well, I might have been a little generous. It was refurbished almost 25-30 years ago, so it was a bit dated. Well, with all my newfound free time, I decided to actually refurbish it. And all that's left to do is paint the guest room I turned into an office. The only thing I didn't do myself was the electric and plumbing, because I have no clue how to do them and have zero interest in being shocked or putting my hand in a SHT-covered pipe. Doing all the work has been incredibly stress-releasing and has helped me clear my head. I still see my therapist once a week. To all those who suggested it, you probably saved my life. So thank you for being able to vent, get my frustrations out, and get the advice I need. It has been better than anything in my life, past or present. I'm still working at the same company, and I've become more open with some of my coworkers that I'm closer with and my boss from my previous posts due to the advice from my therapist. Also, due to her and some of your advice, I've reached out to my friends and have slowly been reintegrating into the group again. Now onto the update on what's been going on between my family and ex. I decided I was ready to have a talk with my mother, so a little over a month ago, I unblocked her on my phone and reached out. I called, and almost instantly she picked up the phone. I could tell from the tone of her voice that she was panicking. Eventually, after reassuring her it was me, I told her we should meet and talk. She agreed, and a day later we met at a diner near her house. She was there before I was, and when she saw me, she started quietly sobbing. When I sat down, she apologized over and over again, telling me she could only take their word because she never thought getting together would ever happen. I told her, while I appreciated her apology, that the things she said to me were despicable and something no mother should ever say to their child. And it showed me exactly what she thought of me. She cried harder and promised it's not true that when she was told I hit my father for no reason, she was so angry. And when I showed up to the house, she just let her anger take over. Not wanting to go back and forth with her, I decided to move on. Speaking of that, what have you decided to do with him? She told me they've been separated. She just kicked him out since the day after I sent her the video. And she immediately found a lawyer. Then we moved on to my ex. She said that when I pulled away, she went back into the house and threw them both out. She was too disgusted to look at them. We talked for about an hour in total, and before I left, I told her I was at a dark point in my life. And because of the things she said to me, I didn't have my mother when I needed her. And because of that, I don't know if I could have her in my life. I then told her I'm willing to work on my relationship with her, but it will be at my pace. She stopped me before I could leave and told me she had to tell me something important. I sat back down, and she said Elle was pregnant. Elle apparently showed up to the house and told my mom. She said she didn't know if it was mine or my father's. Elle asked if I had been in touch so she could let me know. Obviously, she hasn't, so my mom just sent her on her way. Well, that's about it for the update. I have a lot on my mind, and I'm not sure what to do or feel. Thank you for reading. Sorry for rambling on and on. Second story. OP's delusional friend proposed to her on April Fool's Day, so OP rejected him. It turns out he really did have feelings for her. My 23F friend 30M proposed to me on April Fool's Day. I thought it was a joke, but it turned out he was serious. I'm too submissive, and don't know if it's good or bad. Not in the sexual sense, but more in the personality department. I'm not married, but I can literally imagine being the type of woman who'd want to spoil her husband rotten. I wouldn't mind being the submissive wife archetype who would treat my husband like a king, with back massages, dinner prepared, tying his tie every morning, and making him lunch every day. I'd let him have the last say if possible, so long as it was out of love, and probably be the wife who'd be at his beck and call if possible. I'd do all these things even if I loved him more than he'd loved me. So long as he isn't physically or emotionally abusive or cheating on me. I can't imagine myself minding much doing whatever he asks. The problem is, a lot of people, including some of my friends, hate that. The fact that I'm that kind of woman makes it easy for me to be taken advantage of. And I admit I'm fully aware. They think that because I'm this way, I believe that men are superior to women, which I don't. I just want to please my future husband. I don't know if that is freakishly traditional or just me. To be honest, I've almost always been pretty submissive and passive, and I used to be painfully shy growing up too. And while I have been growing out of my timidity, I am still pretty soft and go to great lengths to avoid confrontation, which is a good and bad thing. While I acknowledge I need to work on that, I still wouldn't mind being nearly subservient to my future husband, so long as he's the type of person I could absolutely adore. Are my friends right? Am I too submissive for my own good? Would it even be possible to be in a proper relationship with someone with that kind of personality? Relevant comments. Bob Marley. You sound like a wonderful woman. You are the kind of woman a man dreams that he could marry too. Your friends have their own opinions on matters, but I feel as though they should not bother you at all. Being submissive in the manner you described is not wrong at all. It sounds really sweet and lovely. You sound like a very lovely woman, and you shouldn't change anything at all about yourself. OP. Thank you. I've heard from many of my guy friends that I'm ultimate wife material, and while it does make me happy to hear, it makes me ponder if I'm really a willing pushover, based on what I've been told by my girlfriends. Update. So, that happened. Well, let me start off with something. So, a little over a week ago, I was talking with my friends about relationship dynamics. I told them that I actually view myself in a submissive wife role and would have no problem with it. I go on a huge spiel about it in my Our Confessions post. I spoke with my girlfriends and a few of my guy friends about it mainly, and one of them went to tell either one of some of my other guy friends about it. So, come April Fool's Day, one of my guy friends, let's call him B, who I suspect is either somewhat bipolar, has a DD and ADHD, or something that makes him rather impulsive, calls me over to meet with him that evening after work. My first thought is, he's going to do an April Fool's joke. I'm thinking I'm ready to see what he has in store since he did a funny one in college, literally having some of his friends chase me in funny costumes all around the dorm's lot. So, anyway, he turns around and kneels onto one knee, pulls out a case, and proposes. Now, keep in mind that we're only friends. I've never dated him or considered it because I can't see each other as anything beyond good friends. Also, knowing him, he would be the type of guy who would pull off this kind of thing as a joke. So, thinking it's another April Fool's joke, I laugh and tell him nice try, because I truly think it's an April Fool's joke. He raises the case more, and I keep giggling, asking if he's serious a couple times before he just says, "Yep, April Fools." We both laughed, and told him that he couldn't get me that easily since I knew what day it was, and we saw each other off. Later on, I find out from a friend that he's been in a funk since, and was mopey. At first, I thought something had happened until a friend of mine came to me to talk to me before I could say hi to him in the morning. Apparently, he was legitimately proposing to me. And he was so down that I thought it was a prank. Apparently, somewhere in that conversation my friend had with him, he thought I'd accept his proposal. I'm baffled and trying to wrap my head around it. Until now, I never knew he had any feelings for me whatsoever. I mean, he never asked me out or anything like that, and I never had feelings for him like that either. I only see him as a friend, and I don't like him in that way. I honestly don't know how to go about all this. The fact that he liked me in that way, that his proposal was real, and that I honestly thought he was joking. He jokes around and pulls pranks so much that I never expected anything like this. How do I proceed from here? This just made things extremely awkward, and I have no idea what to do when I see him again. TLDR. Thought friend was just joshing me with a fake marriage proposal on April Fools, but found out the next day it wasn't a joke. I don't know what to do with this information. Help. Edit. Wow, I didn't expect this magnitude of responses. I haven't responded to all of them, but I am reading each and every last one and taking them into consideration. Thank you all for taking the time to give me such wonderful advice. I just want to say that to you guys. Relevant comments. Little Stray. My alarm bells are going off. You're in your early 20s, and he's 30. That's a sizable experience and maturity gap. That he'd propose without having dated you is frankly crazy. That he'd wrap up any sort of relationship step in a joke suggests he's immature. Like, really? It's the "my friend stole my phone" of romantic overtures. But he's a grown man. What's your mutual friend's opinion about this? OP. My mutual friend actually told me that at first, they thought he was joking too, until they learned from him that he was being serious. She told me that it was weird, and that neither she nor I saw it coming. Apparently, he only told her his plans, and that she was weirded out by them. And if he has always been a weird guy, he still caught her off guard. I plan to talk to her more about it tomorrow. He's always acted younger than he truly is, and, truth be told, he is immature and impulsive in many ways. It just never occurred to me that he'd do something like this in all seriousness. I don't think he knows that I know it wasn't a joke now. OP adds more information. Thank you for the advice. We've known each other for 3 years. Aside from hugs, high fives, and the friendly, playful poke and stuff I do with all my friends, I never thought it was out of the ordinary. At times, we would have deep conversations, but never anything too deeply romantic, let alone anything implying any romantic feelings for each other, which I don't have for him. As far as I've witnessed, he's usually just as playful with his other friends as he is with me, which is why I truly never saw something like this coming. I saw no change in his behavior whatsoever. The last thing I was talking to him about before all this was if he wanted to watch The Walking Dead with us. I think the relationship conversation one of my friends had with him definitely got misconstrued in some way. To be frank, I definitely need to ask her exactly how she told him and what happened during that conversation. I think he does have some mental health problems, mainly a low-level bipolar disorder, that have been diagnosed since he tends to be moody before completely returning to his energetic, playful self. I never thought the conversation would spiral that way. I never expected it to happen. I'm still wrapping my head around that, and I'm beginning to reflect back on any ways he's even shown remote interest in me. I never meant to make him feel bad. I don't love him in that way, but he is my friend. Had I known he was serious, I would have probably handled it better. I mean, he's the type of guy with an over-the-top sense of humor, so I truly thought he was joking. I mean, it was April Fool's, and he has done crazy things in the past, just nothing like this. I'll try to talk to him when I get the chance. I really want to salvage our friendship. Despite everything, he's a funny and nice guy whom I'm glad to have as a friend. I just never liked him in that way at all, and he never even inferred he liked me in that way before now. I really hope that we can still be friends, but if we can't, I can understand taking some distance between us. What a mess. Update. I actually wound up not getting the chance to talk to my friend after all about what he said, because he sought me out before I got the chance to talk to him yesterday. As it turned out, several of you were right. He said he was half joking and half serious about the proposal. He had liked me for a long time, and he purposefully chose April Fool's Day to see if I had any romantic interest in him as he did in me. I truly don't understand why that would be a good case to see if I liked him in that way, because to propose to anyone out of the blue without dating them usually means an automatic no. He was actually upset by my reaction, more than he thought he would be. And right after telling me this, he asked me out. I turned him down as politely as I could, though, since I don't like him in that way at all. He said he thought that I had feelings for him. I told him that I loved him as a friend, and that I hoped we could remain good friends. But he just stormed by me afterwards. Judging from that reaction, I don't think our relationship will be repaired anytime soon, if ever. I guess it's for the best in the end. Thank you all for the wonderful advice you gave me. Things didn't really go as I expected them to, but at least I have much more clarity on the situation. TLDR. My friend had come to see me and tell me himself about the April Fool's joke, in which he was partially joking and partially serious. He truly did have feelings for me, and I rejected him. It looks like friendship is ruined forever. Relevant comments. OP. Yeah, something tells me it'll make an interesting April Fool's story in the future. I plan to definitely distance myself from him and definitely be more careful. It actually started off with just a conversation with my friends about relationships. I didn't expect it to spiral into this. I guess that teaches me to put it all out there. Well, I'm definitely going to wait a while before I bring something like that up again. Ziesel. Wow, this might be the absolute most awkward and likely to fail way to ask out a friend I've ever heard of. That is so much more awkward than just straightforwardly asking you out. Like, did he really think you'd say yes? I'm baffled by the whole thing. But it sounds like you handled it as well as you possibly could have. OP. Thanks. This whole thing is crazy, and even thinking about it baffles me. I honestly don't know what was going through his head at the time, and I guess now I never will. Granted, with what everyone pointed out, and with a bit more hindsight, I realized that maybe it was never a real friendship in the first place. Walking_the_dead. He was hoping you'd say yes and be his perfect submissive fantasy wife. Girl. Make no mistake that what sprung all this was your previous declaration. He wants an exclusive particular fetish. P.S. That, in any way, shifts the blame onto you. OP. With what's happened, I guess I really shouldn't have talked aloud about that with my friends, given all that's happened. I'm going to definitely keep things like that under wraps. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friend.